there, my name is Julie Wilkins, and today we are going to be working on the MCC, or Modified Continental Clip, also known as the HCC, or Historically Correct Continental. This is a trim that has been around for years, and you can show a dog in the AKC ring in this trim. It's always been a little more popular in the UKC ring, where they don't allow spray-ups. But it's becoming more and more popular in the AKC ring these days. And it's also a great trim for a novice poodle person because you don't have to deal with all the banding, top knot, and the spray-up. So what we're going to do is break it down bit by bit for you guys. And what I did is I groomed half of the dog first. This is Noodles the poodle, and this is our before half here, so you can see our hairy dog, and she has about maybe 6 to 8 weeks worth of growth on her right here. And what I'm going to do is turn her around so you guys can see the finished side. So this is our hairy side that we're going to work on for the video today. Here, Noodles, turn around. And this is the finished side, so this would be your after. So I'm going to set her up here just so you can see what the end result is that we're going for. There you have it. Alright, so that is our after of the MCC trim for the poodle. And I'll turn her back around here and we will get started. Come on, Nudes. Good girl. Good job. Alright, so I'm going to put her head up in the grooming loop here so she holds still for me and doesn't spin around, but if you have a dog that's good on the table, you can certainly do the trim without a grooming loop or grooming arm. So I want to make sure that she's set up pretty correctly and square here before I start her clipper work. I've already done her face, feet, and sanitary areas. If you have any questions about clipping the face and feet on the poodle, please refer to my video on that on YouTube as well. And I'm going to get started on my clipper work. So I've already prepped the dog, washed her, dried her, combed through her, made sure that the coat is free of mats and tangles, and combed through. So next step is we are going to work on our clipper work. So for me, I like to do my clipper work on these guys with my Wall Bravura clipper here. And what I'm going to do is do my clipper work on the second to the closest setting, which would be the equivalent of like a 30 blade, I would have to say. So if you guys can see it right there, I have it on the second to the closest setting, okay? If you had a dog that has, skin that clipper burns real easily, you could do it maybe on the middle setting or on one of the even longer settings, the equivalent of a 10 or a 15 blade. If you have a dog, with beautiful dark pigment, you really want to show off, you could do it on the closest setting, which would be more of the equivalent of a 40 blade. You can even go as high as a 50 if you get a regular 50 blade on a universal clipper. The problem I find with the Bravuras is if you put it on the very closest setting, the blade will tend to grab the skin. So you want to be careful when you're doing any of the areas with the loose skin, like around the tuck up here, or, like around the elbows and stuff, and around this, looser skin, this softer skin back here in the bend of the leg, because it will tend to grab the skin and, nick them or cut them. I find that it does not do that on the second to closest setting. So sometimes if I really want to show off the pigment on a dark-skinned dog, I will go to that closest setting on the harder, muscled areas, and then switch to the setting that's a little bit longer for the areas with the little flaps of skin and the softer skin, okay? So what we're going to do is start our clipper work on the front leg. And what I want to do, actually, why don't I start on the back leg so I can show you how I measure out all these bracelets. I also did a video on the Continental Clip, which is essentially the same clip, this is just a tighter version with a scissor top knot. That's basically the only difference. So when I'm setting my pattern, what I want to do is start with my back legs. And I'm going to start my clipper work about 2 fingers above the hock on the dog. If you were dealing with a toy or a mini poodle, you might want to go down to 1 finger above the hock. So on the standard poodle, feel where the hock is on your dog, and that's going to be the ankle area. and you're going to start about 2 fingers above that. So here we go, and I'm going to go up the dog's leg against the grain and clean this up really nice. And she's a little ticklish, especially since she hasn't been clipped in a while. Her skin's a little more tender. The more you clip them, the more accustomed to it they will become, and the tougher the skin will become. So that's why the very first time I do this, I don't want to go, you know, with a 30 or a 40 blade and take them in super, super close, because I want to give the skin some time to get used to it. So first time I cut out a dog, I might go with a 10 or a 15 in that case. So I'm going to clean up this whole leg here, coming right up into the second thigh area, and then in the back here. And you want to make sure you do the inside of the leg as well. And what I'll do is when I'm doing this area in here, I'll kind of take my finger and push through a little bit just to make that little skin flap there kind of level with the rest of the muscle and the tendons here. And same thing on the inside of the leg, you could push that skin through just to make it a little bit easier to clip that evenly. Alright, so I have the lower leg all clipped here. And then what I'm going to do is, you know, again, starting a couple of 2 to 3 fingers above the tail set of the dog, I'm going to set the bottom of the tail line. So going against the grain, I'm going to come down. You don't want to bring this line too high up and give them, you know, a palm tree tail. You want to have a nice oval tail. That's what you're looking for, okay? And if you had a longer docked tail, you could bring this line up a little bit more. If you had a really short dock, you could bring the line down a little more. So you can play with that depending on the dog. And you just want to be careful around their little privates here and their tushy. Alright, so that's all set there. So I cleaned up this leg, and now we are coming up to, I think, probably the most difficult part of the trim, which is setting in the rosette. I feel like once you set in this rosette, everything else kind of comes together. So what I want to do is feel where my last rib is on the dog, which is about here, and you're going to do your jacket line about 2 fingers past your last rib. Again, every dog is different conformation wise. Some dogs are long backed, some dogs are shorter backed, some dogs are longer in the loin area, which is right here. So you can adjust that line depending on your dog's conformation. So for Noodles, she kind of lines up to just about 2 fingers behind that last rib. She's pretty square, so we go kind of by the book with her. Alright, so what I'm going to do is use my bravura to just kind of carve in the line here, coming down. You could also do this with scissors if you were, you know, a little nervous to just start going at this with a blade. So you can also do that if you get a nice pair of straight shears. You can use your straight shears as well to just kind of set that line around the waist here. So you can do that with your straight shears first, then go back with your clipper and clean up that line so it's nice and crisp. And then after I set that line nice and crisp, I'm going to go against the grain and just clean it up. You know, especially on her, we're getting into spring now. I want her to get out and get some sun on the buns, get her tan going. So I want to get that nice and close. so she can work on her pigment, okay? All right, so there is my waistline. You know, again, you can kind of comb it all back and just go over it a few times just to make sure everything is even. And your lines are sharp. Okay, so now that that is done, I've kind of set in the front of my rosette at the same time, and there's maybe a finger in between the rosette and the jacket. You don't want to have a huge gaping space in there. So I'm going to comb this up, and what I like to do, once again, depending on how brave you are, I like to use my clippers to edge in the line around that rosette. And what I also use for doing the rosette is a nice small pair of curved shears. These are the Zolita's curves. So those are nice, and they have a nice tight curve on them for doing, you know, nice tight rounded rosettes. So the back part of my rosette, I'm going to set the back of the rosette about 2 fingers forward of my tail set. So I want to hold my tail set up, see where it is, and then measure 2 fingers in front of that. If you had a dog with a lower tail set, maybe they hold the tail out here, you would want to bring your rosettes back a little farther just so you don't emphasize that, so you know it doesn't stand out. You can kind of hide it a little bit. If you have a dog with a beautiful high tail set, I like to bring those rosettes forward and show that off. So what I'm going to do is measure where I want that rosette on her, and then use my clipper to edge it in. And of course I've already done the other side, so this lets me cheat a little bit for the video, and I can just match it up with that. And I'm going to bring the line up right down the center of the dog's spine. If you've got a bigger bodied dog, you can make this line a little wider. You know, smaller dogs, it can be a little narrower. You know, obviously on the minis and toys, it's very, very slight on them. For her, I'm going to say it's about 3/4 of an inch across. So some people will take the blade, you know, the whole clipper blade, and just go right up the middle. I just think it's a little too wide, but again, everyone has, you know, a different idea, different preferences, you know, how they do it. There is no right or wrong way. Everyone has their own style. It's what works best for them and what works best for the dog. So I use my clipper to just kind of edge it in on either side. And like I said, it probably ends up on her being about 3/4 of an inch across on her. Alright, so I'm just going to clean up underneath here. And then if you want to go back up against the grain to clean up any of that clipper work after going with the grain, you can do that just to get it nice and close. Alright, then I'm going to use my nice small curve shears to round this rosette up. And what you can do if you want to cheat a little bit with the length of the rosette, you know, obviously because this is a very tight version of the Continental and the jacket is quite tight, I don't want to have big giant high rosettes on the dog, because then it's going to give the dog kind of a, you know, sway back downhill appearance. You know, I want these to be a little tighter so everything can go uphill from here. So what you can do if you want to cheat a little bit, you can grab a clipper comb. I think on her other side, I did a C clipper comb over a 30 blade. If you are using a Wall or an Oster set of clipper combs, it would be the green for the C. You could also do the A comb, which would be the light purple. That would probably set them to a pretty good length as well. These are the Zolita wide clipper combs, so they are not color coded. So what I'm going to do is just skim this over my rosette just to set my length. And I'm just cheating a little bit here. And that way I know that they are even on both sides. Alright, so after I've done that, then I can fluff it back up. There we go. And then go over with the curve shears. And after you get some of the bulk of the hair off, you can kind of check your lines and see if you need to adjust anything, bring anything farther forward. I want to make a fairly tight round rosette. I don't want to have a big bread loaf on their butt. So I'm just going to edge it all around here to get a nice crisp line. Alright, so there we have that. I can go back later and clean this up a little bit more, but for the sake of the camera rolling, we will move on. But there's the basic idea there. You guys get that pretty good. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is move on to my front leg, the clipper work on my front leg. And I like to set the top of my front bracelet at the highest point of my back bracelet. So when I'm doing my back bracelets, I actually want to do them on a slight downward angle to give the illusion or, creation of more angulation in the dog rather than just going straight across. So you want to do a slight angle, and I'm going to match up the top of my front bracelet with the highest point of the back bracelet, which would be the hawk. So this should be a pretty straight line across here. You don't want to have these bracelets lower because it's going to give your dog a downhill look. If anything, I might set them slightly high or to give them more of an uphill, upbeat look. So, and we can also pump this table up a little bit here. That'll help. Alright, so what I'm going to do is start my clipper work at that highest point of the back bracelet. And I'm going to come right up this leg, right up to the armpit and elbow area. Cleaning up that elbow really good. And most dogs have a little cowlick in their hair right around their elbow. So you want to be careful that, if you're using a really tight blade like a 40 or a 50 blade, then it's going to go really close around this elbow, and sometimes, especially with the white dogs, they'll get like a red elbow. So, you know, you could switch to the next blade length up if you want around there, like a 10 or a 15, just to avoid that if your dog is prone to getting red in that elbow area. But it's definitely a common place for a little bit of clipper irritation. So you just want to be gentle right in that area there, okay? And I like to bring my clipper work right up to or even just above the elbow, because I want to give my dog maximum leg. Especially if you have a dog that's lower on leg. If they don't have a lot of leg, you want to bring that line up as high as possible without, you know, exposing the entire elbow. You also don't want to make them look like they're out at the elbow. So you have to, know your dog, know your dog's conformation, and know what you can do here and how high you can take this line. And just like the rosette, I'm using my clipper to kind of edge in that line coming forward from the elbow. Your underline on this trim should come out from your elbow, okay? All right, and then what I like to do is kind of come around from the inside here, lift up the opposite leg, and clean up that line on the inside of the leg, bringing that clipper line all the way around the entire leg, inside and out. And what I would do is take a little bit off at a time, stand back, look at it. If you need to raise it up more, you can take some more off. You can always take more hair off. You can't put more back on. So you have to just kind of little bit, see what's looking good on your dog for your dog's conformation, and go from there. And sometimes it's also best to scissor a little bit, you know, and see what's going on there before you take it up much higher. All right, so I've already done the jacket area here. Just have some straight hairs in there. So what I want to do now is work on this jacket. And again, I was talking about how I want that underline to meet up with my elbow. So I want to make sure the dog is stacked correctly. You know, she's not roaching her back or slouching when I do this, because this is the outline that the judge is going to see when she's stacked in the ring. So I want to make sure she's stacked appropriately when I'm scissoring it. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. I just had to swap out memory cards. Been doing a lot of videos. And so we were talking about our underline and scissoring in our jacket. So again, you want to make sure, you know, we went over this, that you want to make sure that the dog is set up properly, stacked properly when you're scissoring this part of the dog, because if her head is down, I'm going to get an entirely different outline than I would if her head were up and in the correct spot. And I'm going to continue this line right through between the front legs a little bit while I'm here. And this line, it comes down from the jacket, goes underneath, from the elbow straight through and up into the chest and up to the neck. So this is one smooth, continuous line all the way through. So where your underline disappears in between the front legs, it should come out here in the chest. So that way it all comes together in one smooth line. What I've also done is combed, you know, this area around my clipper line back and scissored that nice and even and flush with the clipper line. Then I can come around the front of the dog and check my line there between the front legs. All right, so there is our underline. And I don't like to have it too heavy on the front of this leg because it's going to give them kind of a heavy downhill look. They should look, you know, light and elegant. So you want to give them an uphill look here. So curve that in real nice in that chest area. And again, if you see any areas that you have to clean up with your clipper, you can go in there and edge that a little more, till you get it just right. And you can also raise up your grooming table, if applicable. So you don't have to bend over like I've been doing this entire time. Okay, so there we go. So there's the underline on this dog, okay? And, you know, I see a lot of trims where the belly is hanging way down. You don't want that because it's going to make them look sway backed. So this should be nice and tight up under here, coming right into that elbow. All right, then for the top line, what you want to do is get maximum neck out of the dog. So I want to start this as tight as I can back here and then build it up to give a nice upward slope up into that neck. All right? So what I'm going to do is comb all this back here, and then I'm going to start at a very steep angle around the waistline, around the jacket area. So I can build up the jacket from there. So I've started that nice and steep there, if you can see it. You don't want to end up with a hump here. You know, you see a lot of Continentals and Modified Continentals with a big hump. So you want this to be a nice steep slope. And what I'm going to do is bring this up. It actually might be easier to do from the side here so you guys can see. I'm actually using my curved shears in reverse here to bring this jacket up into the neck hair. Getting rid of all that bulk on the back. So the steeper you make this, the more neck you're going to give the dog. So hopefully you can all see the difference there after doing that, after tightening that down, how much neck we just gave her. You know, and again, making sure the dog is stacked properly, not roaching her back, making sure her top line is level when you do this, so it comes out correct. So when she's on the ground, moving and being stacked in the ring, you will get the same outline for the judge. Okay? And you just want to be careful of her little nipples under here too. Don't want to snip those. Those are very important. All right, so now, next thing I like to do, if you'll notice, I'm kind of working on my outline before I do the sides. So I'm working on my profile first, then I bring my sides, you know, together into it. So I've done my underline, I've done my waist, I've done my top line, I've curved up the bottom of my chest. Now I'm going to go into my shoulder layback and my neck, which is right here. So what I want to do is just fluff this up with my comb and use my curved shears in reverse to clean up that neckline on the dog so they don't look stuffy. You don't want to leave a whole bunch of neck hair in there and have them look like this, like they have no neck. So you want to open that up so they look nice and elegant. So clean all that out of there. And what I'm doing is, while I'm scissoring, I'm just kind of rolling this back into the side of my neck and my shoulder while I'm doing that. So I'm kind of creating my shoulder layback at the same time. And then I'm going to round up that chest, bringing the chest into that neckline there so it all comes together in the front. All right, you're getting Nancy. So there we have that. And what I can do is pull this ear out of the way here so you can see that neckline there, okay? All right, I'm going to put her head back in the grooming loop and then fluff up my side coat here. And I want to kind of bring this all together. So what I'm going to do is round this up. Round up this side coat into the top line. So it all comes together. And another thing that I love to use on the side coat is my chunkers. So if you guys have, you could mist the coat with a little bit of water or some scissoring spray of some sort and then fluff it up. Just to get all those little sticky outy stray hairs out. And these are my Artero chunkers, which I love. And what I'm going to do, let me move you guys up here, crank you up a little bit so you can see better. All right. And I'm going to go over this side coat with my chunkers and round it up. And you don't want to take the side down too tight because you don't want to slab side the dog like a Bedlington Terrier. They should be rounded. They should have nice, well-sprung, rounded ribs. This is a working dog. So you don't want to whittle them in too tight on the sides. I see a lot of people do that and slab side them. So you want to make sure everything is nice and rounded when you're looking from, the back of the dog or top down. Which is obviously why a nice pair of longer curved shears is excellent for this. And then finish up by going over with the chunkers just to get a very nice finish on the dog. That's going to give it a nice smooth finish. All right, so I am going to, let's see, just take that down a little bit more there. Good girl noodles. All right, you always want to kind of stand back and look from the side. You know, I did the top line from the other side of the dog, so I just want to make sure everything looks good from this side. Coming down into that jacket. All right, before I move on to the head and finishing up top, I want to do my bracelets. So, let's see here. So what I'm going to do is comb all the hair down around my clippered foot, and I'm going to scissor my bevel even with my clipper line from behind. All right, and then same thing on the back here. I'm going to comb all this down around the foot. I like to do the back side of the feet from behind, from the underside, so I can get a better look at them. Okay, so now I've got that done. Then I move around to the front of the foot, comb that down, fluff it up a little bit, and scissor that front bevel. All right, so now I've got that bevel done all around those feet there. Just gonna pump her up a little bit. Same thing on the front side. Kind of combing it down around that foot and just scissoring around the front of the bevel. Okay, then what we want to do is comb and fluff the bracelets up. Again, if you have a little conditioning spray or something you want to use, you can do that. If you want to put a little bit of modifier in the coat, if you have a softer coat, you could use some Thick and Thicker or an equivalent spray to that. Or you could even use like a lighter, finer hairspray mist just to help them stand up. All right, so after I comb everything up, I want to scissor ovals, because ovals create the illusion of length and height and, you know, legginess. So you don't want to have like a tiny little round bracelet way down here. You want to have more of an oval shape. So I'm just going to scissor this all the way around. And you want to be three-dimensional when you do this, moving all the way around the bracelet so you can be sure all sides are nice and rounded and even. No. It's okay. Somebody's in the window. What you can also do is come in from the other side. So I pick up the opposite leg, fluff it up, and then scissor this down. And I like to just work on them a little bit at a time. Put the leg down, see how it's looking. You know, again, you can always take more off. You can't put more back on. You know, you don't want to have big, huge bracelets on a tighter style trim like this because it's going to make them look kind of clunky. So you want to make sure that they're balanced with your, you know, your jacket and your tail and your top knot. So I'm probably going to take them in a little tighter than I would on a regular Continental trim or, you know, like a Continental in full specials coat. I might leave them a little fuller in that case. So this trim, everything's kind of a little tighter in this trim. All right, now the back bracelet is an entirely different shape than the front two bracelets. So the back bracelet is almost more of an upside down triangular shape if I had to describe it. So what I want to do is comb all this up, give it a little shake so it lays naturally. And what we want to do is scissor, you know, again, talking about our downward, you know, our slight downward angle here, so we can create angulation in the dog or emphasize it. And in between the hind legs, I'm going to go a little bit tighter than the outside of the bracelet, because when my dog is moving away from the judge, I want it to be nice and clean when he's, you know, moving away. I don't want there to be all kinds of hair moving around in there and brushing together, which is also going to make the dog look like it's close behind when he moves on the way on the down and back. So you don't want the judge to think that your dog is close behind because he has all kinds of hair between his hind legs, which is brushing together as he moves. So make sure you tighten this up nice in here. And I'm just rounding up the bevel from the foot up into this, and then it comes, you know, fairly straight up in between the back bracelets. And then what you want to do is leave your hawk hair a little bit longer as well, so you have your angulation there. Stay. And Noodles has decided she's had enough. Noodles, we're not done yet. Stay. So you can scissor this up from this angle, or you can do it with the dog standing, whichever is more comfortable for you or the dog. But you want to make sure you don't take off all that hawk hair, so it, you know, gives you some nice angulation back here and some nice rear. If you take it all down really tight and flat, it's going to make your dog look straight in the rear, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to round up the front part of this bracelet coming out from the foot and bringing it up into the top so it all comes together, leaving this front area a little bit longer right in here. Alright, so again, leaving the hawk hair a little bit higher back here. You know, this is also another great place to use your chunkers. If you have your chunkers, you could go over your bracelet and just kind of tip your hawk area, but leave most of that on the longer side, with your bevel going down into that foot. Alright, so there is our back bracelet. The small curved shears are really nice for trimming up around the bevels as well. Alright, so moving on to our tail. I'm going to lower the table back down a little bit here so I can reach it. Alright, Noodles. So if you have, I think I go into this a little bit more in some of my other videos, but again, if you have a dog with a squirrel tail, so they hold it like that, you want to scissor the tail totally different. You know, what you would do is take this part of the tail in a little bit tighter and then grow this part of the tail out fuller, because you want to give the illusion that the tip of the tail is here, not here. All right, so this would come in really tight, grow this out full, spray it up with hairspray, you know, and scissor this nice and round. Her tail is actually perfectly straight, so she's got an easy tail. But there are definitely a lot more challenging tails out there. Kind of the opposite, if you had a dog with a really low tail set that carried its tail out here, you'd want to grow this part fuller to give the illusion that everything's, you know, farther forward, and take this in tighter back here. So there's different things you can do with the tail, you know, play with the tail just like the rosettes and the bracelets, you know, to help out your dog depending on their conformation and body type. I like to fluff up the tail, and if they have a really big huge tail, I might spray it up with some hairspray, or you know, you could add like a little bit of Thick and Thicker to it. One of my favorite products, just to give it a little bit of body. And then the Thick and Thicker is great because once it dries. All right, ran out of time there. So we are back to the tail. I put a little bit of spray in it, and we were just talking about how with the Thick and Thicker you can comb through it still, so which is good. It doesn't make it all gunky. So what I want to do is scissor around the base of my tail, my bevel, my tail bevel here. And you can do this with either curves or straights, whatever's more comfortable for you. Stay. All right. And then the top, we're going to round that. Just to help that stand up a little bit. And I'm going to round this all up with my curved shears, so it all comes together. And I'm holding it right at the tip of the tail here. And I'm bringing it, you know, all the way around so it finishes at that base of the tail where I beveled it. And the great thing about curved shears is you can flip them around, so while I'm doing this side of the tail, I can use them on this side. When I go over to this side, I can flip them around to the other side if you get good at that. And you can just continue right on around the tail without missing a beat. Alright, so there is the tail. Okay. And she's got a nice tail here, so. Her sister likes to pull and tug on it, so it's probably not in the best of condition right now. Her little puppy sister, so it's missing a little bit of hair. It's a little shredded, so I'm hoping it will come back thicker before she gets in the ring. And maybe her sister will stop using her as a chew toy. Alright, so now we're going to move on to our head. I'm just going to reset the camera so we get a different angle here, okay? Okay, so now for the final part of the trim, the head, the most important part, the focal part of the dog. That shows the expression. So what you want to do is fluff all this up real good. Again, if you have like a little bit of Thick and Thicker, you want to add that to it. That works good too. Just to give it a little lift there. obviously without going crazy, because I feel like that totally defeats the purpose of the HCC as opposed to the sprayed up Continental. So, all right, so we've got this all combed through and ready to go and prepped. So what I want to do is start with my visor on the dog. And she's not super overgrown here because I don't like it when she can't see. So I've kind of been scissoring that a little bit, but I already did this side. But what I'm going to do is take my curve shears and I'm going to scissor this visor down underneath here, following the clipper line back with my curve shears. And then you can flip them in reverse to really get that nice and tight under there. And actually, I'm going to move this camera over a little bit so you guys can see a little bit better. Because I don't think you saw any of that, did you? All right, so we're going to use our curve shears to scissor the visor here, okay? With the curve shears the correct way, then you can switch to them in reverse to really carve that out nice and steep there. Then what I want to do is use the curve shears in reverse to bring this line down into the top of the ear, kind of exposing, you know, and cleaning up that back skull area just a little bit there. All right. And then you guys can still see. Excellent. All right, then we're going to use our curve shears to round this up into the top knot here. All right, I'm going to pull this ear forward, and I've already trimmed up my neckline under here, but what I want to do is use my curve shears to kind of bring this neckline up into the back of the neck and the mane area, so it all comes together, and kind of edging in that bevel behind the ear, almost like the back of a Bichon frise head. If you think of that, like when you do that jawline there, you want to clean up this line back here, which is also going to give your dog a nice arch in the neck. All right, and then now the biggest thing with the MCC, HCC, field cut, whatever you're doing, they do not want to see a break over the ears. So like on a normal pet trim, you would take this line here after you scissor in this visor and take in a tight bevel over the ear. There should be no bevel over the ear in any of these trims. What you are going for is the same outline of a spray up, you know, the same kind of profile as a spray up without the spray up. So you want, what they want to see is that softened look of the hair kind of flowing down into the ear. So no bevel over the ear on this trim at all, whether it's hunt trim, HCC, MCC, anything. Another variation of the MCC is doing a single band and bubble in the very front. So that's another option. You could grow out this one section in the front, do a bubble, band it, and then, but then I kind of feel like you get into spraying up and spraying it back to get it out of their face, and I just kind of feel like it defeats the whole purpose. So, you know, for me, if you're going to do the MCC, HCC, you know, you might as well scissor the visor. But if you want to do that single bubble and band, you could. It does allow you to get the dog's expression a little bit better and pull the eye up, you know, get that pretty expression. So you are able to do that a little easier with the single band option. All right, so we're going to scissor up this front. And now, you know, this top of the head area here, you know, especially if you don't want to make any big dents or anything like that, another great place to use your chunkers, just so you can kind of edge it and lightly trim it so it's all nice and rounded. And what I'm going to do is just come down the back of the neck here, leaving that mane area longer, but just having it come down and blend in with my top line so it all comes together as one smooth transitional line all the way back down the dog toward the rear end. You know, and her, I want to leave her pretty full up here. I've been growing this out, so I'm just tipping it just to get the shape on there. So she was actually shaved down last summer in June, at the end of June. So this is how much hair that she's grown out since then, which is good, you know. So I've been working on getting her in this trim to see if we can try to get her to a few shows in it and see how she does. It's definitely a harder trim to win with. A lot of judges don't really quite understand it, but more and more are recognizing it now. So, you know, again, you're seeing more and more of them in the ring. You have to have the right type of dog to pull this off. It's not the right trim for every dog. You know, some of the rangier dogs, bigger dogs are not going to look good in it. You kind of need, you know, a more compact dog for this trim. For the ear, you know, you want to have it nice and rounded and beveled. What I like to do, just so the inside doesn't get so bushy and out of control, again, is cheat a little bit. So I'm going to use my C clipper comb just to kind of skim down the inside of this ear a little bit, just to get rid of some of this bulk. You know, also so you're not, you know, dematting that and dealing with all that hair in there. And it also allows for more airflow in and out of the ear canal, which means healthier ears, happier dogs, happier people. Everybody wins. So I clean up the inside of that ear, leaving the outside longer, and it's, you know, it's pretty well hidden. You can't even see it. And what I'm going to do is take my curve shears, and she doesn't like it when I mess with her ears. She's like, no. And we're just going to round this ear, bevel it all the way around here. All right. And it should kind of have a, you know, a tighter bevel back here. You know, again, kind of giving it a nice arched look to the neck. And then bring it up into the front. And the front, you know, is fairly straight down. But I don't want it all bushing forward and into her face, so it covers up her eye so she can't see. Then I'm going to use my curve shears and just kind of scissor this down, layering it as I do that. Blend it down. This is another area where you could use your chunkers as well. All right, and I'm not taking a whole lot off these ears because I want to leave them a little bit longer on her, but not too long. So, you know, this is a nice utility working dog trim, so they don't, you know, in the field you wouldn't want your dog to have these long ears that the dog is going to be stepping all over when they're, you know, hunting and doing field work. So this is a good utilitarian trim that they can take into the ring and look pretty with as well. So there is our finished head on Noodles the poodle. Good girl, Noodles. All right, and then we'll go back out to the side profile as we're finished. All right, so here we have our finished product of the Modified Continental Clip. So I just wanted to set her up for you guys to see. Okay, there we go. And this would be the right side of the dog. All right, you can turn her around here, straight on, so you guys can have the butt shot. All right, there is the hind end view of the Modified Continental Clip. Okay, and here we have the judge's side, which is the left side. Okay, there we go. so there is the judge's side. That's the outline that you're going for. Okay. You know, again, making sure the dog is stacked right, and the ring also. All right. And then our front view. Here, Noodles. All right, so here is the front view. Okay. And actually, let me bring this up a little bit here so you guys can see the top of the head. All right, there we go. Now you guys can see the top of the head as well. All right, so there is our front view of the dog, just so you can see, you know, how the jacket comes out from the elbows and rounds up. You know, how it looks between the front legs and there. So you can see that whole view there. And then, you know, again, we talked about the face and how there should be no bevel over the ear, and how it frames the face similar to a spray up. All right, and that concludes our video on the MCC. Please subscribe to my channel and hit like if you'd like to see more videos. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.